Let's talk Tanya for the second of Cheshvan. So we are approaching the end of chapter 25 of the Igeres HaKodesh. So far, the Alter Rebbe has explained how the creation of the world, everything is through God's speech, and God's speech is constantly recreating the world and all of creation, but at the same time, the energy in God's speech comes down through the worlds, and ultimately, the diaspora, we have what's called Galus HaShechina, the exile of the Shechina, because the energy of God's speech, which is the Shechina, enters into the 70 archangels of the nations of the world, which is Klippa, and but ultimately, nevertheless, the creation that comes through these archangels is by virtue of the divine energy that enters them, so everything is being recreated by God at every single moment. And now we are ready to introduce the passage of the Tzavos HaRivash, the book of the collection, the anthology of the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, which the opponents of Hasidim objected to, which this entire letter is here to defend. So, it is in chapter 120 of the book of Tzavos HaRivash, and there it is written as follows. The Baal Shem Tov says, he teaches that if you hear someone speaking, interrupting you, disturbing you while you're davening, so you should say to yourself, why did Hashem cause this, that someone should be speaking while I am praying? After all, everything is hashgacha pratis, everything's by divine providence. However, dibur, speech, is the Shechina. This is something we've talked about at length throughout this chapter. So therefore, the speech of this person who's disturbing me also is a representation of the Shechina. And the Shechina right now has entered and enclosed itself in the mouth of this person who is disturbing my davening. Why? The purpose is that I should strengthen myself in my service of Hashem and in my concentration during davening. How much should I strengthen myself in my davening? And this is especially true if the person who's disturbing is a non-Jew or a child, because then it turns out that the Shechina is entering a non-Jew, a person of this sort. So how much more should I strengthen myself in my davening? So this is what is said in this book. And when this came out, the opponents of Chassidus, they had conniptions, and they were like, what are you saying? Are you saying that the Shechina is to be found right now in the mouth of the person who is disturbing my davening? How disrespectful that is to God. And you're saying that ultimately it is the divine power that is disturbing my davening, and that is something which is a heretical thought. But if you think that based on everything that we've learned about up until this chapter, this is precisely and exactly describing Galus HaShechina, the process which the Arizal talks about, the idea of the Shechina entering into the forces of Klippa, the non-holy forces, and that's what we're having over here. Ultimately, everything is from Hashem, so it is the Shechina that is entering the mouth of this non-Jew. That is Galus HaShechina. Now, if you recall also, 2 days ago, we spoke about that every single one of our attributes is linked specifically to a certain attribute in holiness. That was when we're talking about the godly soul. When we're talking about a non-Jewish soul, so the speech of the non-Jew is connected to the speech, the faculty or the attribute of Malchus, which is in Klippa, of unholiness, and ultimately it is the speech of God which enters the Malchus of the Klippa, which then enters the mouth of the non-Jew. So everything that the Baal Shem Tov says over here is precisely described in the writings of the Arizal when it talks about the Galus HaShechina, the exile of the Shechina within the forces of Klippa. And here also we see the phenomenon of Asher Shalat Ha'adam Ba'adam L'Rolei, which we spoke about yesterday. The idea of that when the energy of holiness enters into, and so to say, is an exile within the forces of Klippa. So although it seems that the forces of Klippa are in control, but it is L'Rolei, it is to the detriment of Klippa. The same thing over here. It sounds like the non-Jew has hijacked the power of holiness. And what is he doing now with the power of holiness? It is using the power that it has, the power it is receiving from the Shechina, in order to disturb the Jew who is davening. But in actuality, what is the intention here? What is the purpose here? The purpose is that the Jewish person should say, oh my gosh, look at that. The divine energy, the holy energy of God is entering into this Klippa receptacle. And what is the purpose? The purpose is that I should daven with an even greater concentration, to the point that I don't even hear that person who is disturbing me. So yes, it is the divine energy entering into the non-Jew, into the Klippa, purpose is, however, that the Yid, the Jew, should daven with more kavana. So it's all a ploy, it's all a trick to get the powers of holiness to become even stronger. And the Alter Rebbe is saying, this is not what I'm saying. This is not even what the Baal Shem Tov is saying. The Baal Shem Tov is actually only articulating this larger concept of Galus Hashchina, and that which Shlomo HaMelech says, Asher Shalata Adam Ba'adam L'Rolei, one person dominating the other person, the Klippa dominating the Kedusha, but it's for its detriment, as explained and elaborated upon in the writings of the Arizal. So the question is, why were the opponents of Chassidim, why were they objecting to this passage? And that we'll talk about in tomorrow's Tanya.